Hi, everyone, and welcome to Rituals of Strength, your personal source of strength and power. This week, we are continuing with our very in depth interview, roundtable discussion with Sifu Russ Smith and Coach Randel Davis. So, without further ado, let's continue with part two of this discussion.
Cool, cool.
Next question, guys. Hard versus soft training. I would like to know, how hard did you go in your hardest hard Qigong days? What kind of balance do you keep today? And what have you like gotten rid of and said, oh my God, that was incredibly stupid? Or are we still putting testicle weights on and practicing contractions? I don't know. So, Russ, you want to start with this one? What's your hard soft balance?
Sure. I would say certainly as I've gotten older, the body wants everything to be a bit softer and more forgiving. Nowadays, it's the challenge is always to kind of see how much of the old style training I can still withstand. There are some things I've definitely given up. But I try to push myself hard enough. One of my teachers said, teaching is sharing, teaching is learning, and teaching is training. And I think that's a really good thing to remember that if you're going to teach, like
Hmm.
you've got to keep yourself up. You need to be a good
Hmm.
example. Just try to maintain your abilities as a practitioner so you don't become the guy who's sitting in the corner smoking the cigarettes, barking out orders. I don't as romantic as that might be for some people, that's not
Those are
not
vitamins. Those are vitamins,
that's
Russ.
right. That's true. That's true. Not my kind of vitamin, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, I push myself as hard as I can nowadays, but softer for sure. Like I spend a lot more time in flow practice than I do in power expression practice. Uh, Expressing full real power. I remember the day a while ago when I realized like I was getting the power, like I could hit a bag and accomplish my goal, and I
Mhm.
fucking hurt myself right out of the gate. And I'm like, oh, that's the new problem. The new problem is I have enough power to hurt myself. So
Oh,
Is there anything, Russ, that you used to do that you go, what was I thinking? I'll never do that again?
there are some things on my back, like warm-ups that my back really knows are absolutely bad. There's some, Okinawan karate took a lot of PE ideas and thrust them on the top of
mm.
the training. So you ended up with a lot of like toe touches and windmills and all kinds of weird like PE activities. Uh, Good thing is in Goju-Ryu, it was a little bit better because Choji Miyagi, the founder of this style, worked with a doctor and pulled in some yoga and other practices in to do a better job. But even then, there are some of those exercises just not good, like laterally stretching the knees.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason there's a ton of karate people with knee replacements. There's a ton of people in karate with hip replacements. There are just some exercises that have done the ballistic style stretching with real power and all that stuff. Mixing the idea of warm-ups and body development has been horrible as far as I can tell in traditional martial arts. Just the idea that people don't realize what is a warm-up versus what is like really stressing your body. Those are things that took me a lot of pain and injury to learn. And so now I take that a bit more carefully. Everything comes with a warm up, unless, like in Florida, it's 112 degrees today. I don't need much of a warm up. But cold days, I've gotten hurt a lot more on cold days than warm.
Mm.
So just, maybe it's hard for me to give you specific examples, Coach, but
Yeah.
certainly there are these windmills and toe touch routines that were just like pretty awful, and they really didn't take into account people's individual differences. Those are things I definitely stay away from. I still do iron arms training. I still do iron palm training. I still hit the Makiwara. By the way, I enjoyed the hell out of your video, your Makiwara
Thank you.
video. So good. Highly recommend that. All the different focus that you demonstrated and delivered there. I thought that was great. I think a lot of karate people could benefit from the idea of what you showed there. But I don't see that as being bad because I think anything done progressively can be good. I start people just pushing with structure on
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Makarwara far before I have them hit
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So let me stop there. Randall, how about you?
Sure. I'm going to disappoint both of you guys. Probably you more than anybody, Russ. I don't think I've ever done any Chinese hard training. As close as I've ever come to it, like body training, like no hitting the body, as close as I've ever come to Iron Palm is the wall bag in Wing Chun, going progressively through the mole beans and then the beans and then sand and then eventually, I've done some with BB shot and stuff like that. And I still
You do any of
every
it on
once
occasion?
what's that, my friend?
You do that on occasion still or no?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
But it's not an everyday practice.
Okay.
It's okay, this month I'm gonna bring out some jow, or if I don't feel like doing jow, I've got some other Western equivalents that I found work really well for that. And then I'll get to work on it. But honestly, this is just an opinion, and this is my own personal training journey. When I say that some of the things that I've moved past with hard body training, I would say it's the weightlifting styles that I've gone through. When I was in high school and even in the first parts of college, I competed also in U.S. like Olympic powerlifting. So we're talking snatch, squat, not squat, deadlift, and clean jerk.
Mhm.
And then, but I also was big into like leg press and curls and bench press and stuff like that. And I still do that every now and then. But about the same time that I found the light Indian clubs, I also found Scott Sonnen's program. That was about 2011, 2012, and I found the heavy Indian clubs, and it's a completely different process than the light clubs. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then a year later, I was looking for Onnit. I was looking through Onnit, a company out of Austin, Texas, and they had some cheaper clubs. I'm like, oh, should I get these? And they had a mace. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And so I got the mace. I got a 15 pounder. Thank God I didn't get the 50 pounder. But I mean, it was nothing but ego. It was such an ego check, coach, because you have to choke up on it. Like I tried doing the long swing the first time
Yeah.
and it damn near threw my short little chubby ass because I didn't do it right. I was locked in. I was like, oh God.
Hammer
And
four.
yeah, that's exactly right. It was Thor's hammer 100%. And so I learned to choke up on it. And it was a good year that I was halfway up that thing, learning how to swing it both directions. And then a year later, I had the actual grip strength and the dynamic strength because that's what really those tools train is
Yes.
dynamic strength. So yeah, so if you were saying hard body stuff, it was a move away from linear training and more something that would help not only my lifestyle but augment my martial arts, and that is the as a matter of fact, you know what, I've got a pair right next to me. I always have a pair of clubs on me.
I know whose those are.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to talk to Jack someday.
And we were trying to
So
coordinate.
yeah, but that was my biggest movement was getting into, and I actually, Sifu Russ and I actually got to meet uh, a little while ago in person, and that poor guy, I had him swinging the clubs and goofing
It was
around with the
awesome.
mace. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, but that style of training has really helped. It give not to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I love Wing Chun. I'll do it for the rest of my life, but there's a lot of Wing Chun training that's isolated. And I found that if I do a dynamic warm up that moves in multiple planes of motion that Wing Chun just doesn't get to,
Mhm.
that's when the isolation practice is really good. And that's when I don't just focus on the hand movement, but I'm still aware of the whole body that's holding up that hand structure that's moving in space. And so, these tools have been such a cognitive gift of understanding a three-dimensional body that's living in space for me instead of just, I'll tell you guys something funny. When I thought of center line, this is such a weird thing to say, but I was just thinking of the flat of the front of my shirt. I
Mhm.
literally thought that the front of my body was just the flat of your clothing. I didn't realize that the middle of my body was back
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And that, and being aware of having the back of your body, those three areas, it's changed so much for me. So dynamic movement weight training has been my shift from hard weight training. That was my hard training, coach. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I like Russ. I do iron palm. I'm a daily Makiwara guy. I still do iron arm. I would say at least once a week. But my inconsistency is I can't do shin conditioning. I don't know why, but like shin rolling seems inhumane. It's just, I'm like, this is gonna
Yeah.
wound me. I just don't enjoy it. And the other one that I got rid of is we used to do a lot of iron Geta, the lead sandal. So for like
Yeah.
leg extensions and walking, amazing, but ballistic stretches with a 20-pound sandal on, dumbest thing in
Yeah.
the world.
There's a reason why we don't do like we did in high school, which was run around the track with ankle weights on.
Yes.
It just destroys people's knees, right?
That's
Um,
terrible. Terrible.
you know, one of the things that we do with equipment in a lot of Southern arts is we've got stone locks, like kettlebell precursor concept,
Yep.
ishisashi, which look a little like, or not chishi, which look a little like the clubs,
Yeah.
but the primary goal is to train the strength of the wrist, not the whole body motion. So it's isolated. And then jars and other things for grab
Hmm.
training.
Yeah.
And those things, even though they're hard training, when you talk about trying to develop a good, solid, hard punch, developing your grip and wrist strength is just
Yeah.
fantastic for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
we didn't have the funds at my first recreational center that I was renting, so we would use folding chairs. We would pinch it or grab it wide. We would do
That's awesome.
Yeah.
fantastic. It was fantastic.
That's what the old masters would have done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you a related question. Is there an internal practice that right now for you as an individual is most relevant? Capturing your brain, consuming your focus, something very internal.
The most relevant
Yeah,
that we're standing. Yeah. I finally, it's funny, coach, because one of the things when you were on our show, you talked about, working with Lee Manchar and how hard he hit and how good he was, but it was
yeah,
hard to stick with his practice. And Owen's like, well, why didn't he stick with his practice? I'm like, didn't you listen to him? He said he has ADHD. It's
yeah,
hard to fucking stand in place and
yeah,
not do anything. But I found that for me, with, now I'm going to be 46 in September. I'm the baby here. I don't mind. But, I'm going to be 46 in September. And I have a job that the nervous system needs to, one, be always active with driving a city bus. Two, you have to have a DuPont Teflon layer for bullshit. I get cut off 15 to 20 times a day. So I can't take that personal. I've got to let it slide because if I'm still carrying in my nervous system the anger that I felt when somebody at 7:20 cut me off, when I come back from my split shift and it's 5:15 and I've dropped off grandma and grandpa and I'm going home and somebody cuts me off on my way home, I can't lose it. I've got a 38,000-pound death machine. I can't have a bad day ever. And so I'm finding that for me, the standing practice not only one helps to elongate my spine a little bit and relax and open and expand the tissues, but something else it does is I call it defragging the nervous system.
mm,
I'm
Nice.
learning how to find what idle is again. I really feel like we have, and this is something. Hopefully, somebody you get on the show as well. I've watched a lot of Ken Ware's work on podcasts. I've listened to him talk. I see what he
amazing.
does, and Ken's superhuman.
We're trying to get
Neurophysics.
him on as
Yeah,
well, but it's tough coordinating. Yeah,
it's yeah. He's in Australia. So it's a different time zone. But something he talks about. He's like, we have this white noise in our nervous system all the time. And I have found that the standing practice for me, anyway, really helps to get rid of some of that background nervous system noise. I didn't get the right transformer at 7, carrying that around. Or, my girlfriend left me, 15 years ago, which I
yeah,
had coming, getting rid of that, but it just helps get rid of some of that background garbage. And then I can deal with stuff in more of an aware, immediate fashion than, constantly having anger issues or whatever. But the standing practice for me has really been the thing. And the last one, real quick, and then I'll let you take over, Russ, would be the circle walking in Bagua.
mm,
I've had, it's funny because Owen is my fourth Bagua instructor, but for some reason, and it could be, it's a testament to Owen because he's great. He's a great teacher. He's the only one that the Bagua has stuck with. And I think you guys might laugh at this. I think when I just did Wing Chun, because it was so linear, the Bagua or the circle walking was so foreign to my brain that I could never remember it. It
mm.
sounds so silly. I couldn't remember the single palm change because I'm used to going forward and backward, up and down, straight line. I didn't have a complex movement practice. And then after 12 years of doing Shingi, Owen's like, guess what? It's time. You need to do this too. I'm like, okay. So there I am. There you go.
On the topic of crying at 7 because you got the wrong transformer, I was reading recently a guy said, you're over 40 if you remember crying at the death of Optimus Prime. And I was like, I totally remember that.
That's exactly right.
For
I love
sure.
that. I love
For
it.
sure.
And Russ, do you have an internal practice that's particularly relevant to you right now?
Yeah, right now I have revived what a dear friend of mine taught me in terms of Yang Tai Chi. And I've started sharing that with a few people, small class here, but one of the people who has joined the class has MS. He's got some significant challenges with movement. He's essentially got a dead foot, which
Mm.
causes him a lot of challenges. It's really causing me to reevaluate my own movement practices in order to try to help him. Um, that is kind of a really important thing to me right now is to try to figure out what I have that might be able to help him. Uh, so yeah, that's a real important thing for me right now. And then there are a few other students who just have no movement practice in their history at all, and they have no coordination whatsoever. So it's causing me to, the first time I teach something, it causes me to stretch my own understanding, and I definitely learn from it, like that little poem my teacher gave me. I'm learning along the way, which is nice for me, but also it seems to be helpful for other people. So just helping me figure out how the body's moving, um, what are some alternatives while still maintaining some of the central concepts of Tai Chi. So yeah, that's a main one. So, oh no,
We lost Coach. Hey,
we
guess what
lost
though?
him.
I'm the host now.
You are.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
great.
All
Yeah, well,
right.
I
welcome to an exciting episode
sorry, brother.
of.
Let
No,
me.
you're good. I turned into the host there, Coach.
Are
So I
you?
was,
It
It's still recording. Yeah, yeah.
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah,
It
my
took
phone.
Randall point 0.2 seconds to shift gears. He's like, I got this.
Fantastic. All right. Next question for you. I know you both have very integrated approaches, but how important would you say maintaining tradition or preserving, let's call it legacy and lineage? How important is that for you?
You want to
Deeply
start,
Rust.
Randall?
No, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll go. All right, here we go.
Okay.
It is, and I didn't think it was until I got a little bit older. And luckily, Sifu Mayer, the way he taught me Wing Chun, it was more in a formulaic approach. It was more of, hey, here's a hand shape. Here's a couple principles this hand shape shows. Here's a couple drills. Here's where it is in the forms. Can you come up with some more things? These are just examples. What else can you do with this? Does it relate to the weapons? Does it relate to the sticky hands? Does it relate to this? So he gave me a very beautiful model into expanding to kind of make Wing Chun my own. But it is the principles that make the Wong Q system what the Wong Q system is. I haven't changed the forms. I haven't changed the drills. I've added on some drills, but they're based in principle. So I don't think that that is, spitting in the face of tradition. I think it's actually doing what tradition wanted to do was, to every generation gets to grow and add on some useful things to it. A lot of the things that I've added actually have to do more with the rookie student and learning and the modern day that we live in. So, I try to keep the Wong Q stuff as Wong Q as it is. I don't mix it with my Bagua. I don't mix it with my Xingyi. And it's the same thing if I'm teaching Xingyi. I don't teach Xingyi that much. Owen's like, yeah, if you want to, have a small group, that's cool. But I really don't. People haven't asked for it. And then when they do train it with me, it's usually 3.5 to 4 hours. And I'm like, oh, he's just a short little chubby guy. It's going to be easy. It's a lot of stretching. It's a lot of footwork. It's a lot of standing practice. It's a lot of two-person work and stuff like that. And it takes a good long practice to really get the flavor and the feel for it. And so I don't have a lot of people that are willing to take 3 or 4 hours to do the practice with me. So I have to look at that. I might be rearranging stuff to make it more like an hour and a half to 2 hours. But for now, my primary focus is the Wing Chun. But I do find that I try to keep it as pure as possible. I've worked with a lot of Wing Chun people. As a matter of fact, I worked with a young man this morning before I came on the show, and John is brilliant. And I think he's one of the best Wing Chun practitioners I've met in a long time. Very humble, very great guy. But he likes, and it's something that Coach Sifu Russ talks about all the time, is your martial arts and your teaching are inherently two different skills. And so John really likes the way that I present material. And so I work on what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? And how do you teach somebody else to understand what you're doing? I think my biggest change to what would be the traditional Yip Man Wing Chun model, Yip Man to Wong Q, who was my Sigung, to my Sifu Mayor, to myself, and I think you guys might smile at this, is I teach some of the knife stuff. I teach some of that and some of the long pole stuff on the very first day. But I don't, and the reason I do that is Wing Chun is a fine motor skill art. And most people walking in the door have no clue on how to move their bodies, like Russ was talking about with some of his students. So you put an object in their hand, there's a fun factor. One. Two, the knives and the long pole are gross motor skill. I'm not teaching them the whole damn form. I'm not teaching them application. I'm not teaching them a two-person set. I'm teaching them one move on the long pole and two moves on the knives. And here's what I'm using for my knives. I think you guys will appreciate this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Charcuterie board, bread board, cheese board, vegetable board, dessert
You
boards.
couldn't have a Frencher solution right there.
That's
Very
exactly
Quebecois.
right. You know, it's great because I've got two of them. The other one's a little hard to reach right now, but it's same company, same measurements, but they're both just a little bit different in weight. And then I'll have them lock out their arms all the way, and then when their arms are locked out all the way, I'll just have them isolate and twist the wrist and
Yeah.
do these motions. But you know, I'm trying to get some gross motor skill development in my rookie students, and then the body is warm, it's dynamic movement. Then we can start to isolate and actually, you know, their joints are lubricated. Then we can start taking the impact of the two-person drills. So that's how I'm trying to move forward with my
In
tradition.
in a correspondence this week, you had said you were going to teach somebody from a different lineage and you were going to try to not
Yes,
step on
yes.
ideological toes. So I'm curious how both of you, because both of you are very well regarded in your traditional worlds, and you must attract people from, I think it's not the disparately different style. It's the one that's so similar. It's just different on two things. These are the people that get the most offended, I find. How do you approach that?
For Russ, would
Yeah,
you start
so
us off?
yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I don't find it that hard to navigate, but I think my professional training helps me there. So I come from consulting, and in consulting, you're trying to go into a company and find
Mhm.
out how the business really works. And you can't be antagonistic with people. You've got to be there to help, and you've got to do what you can to help them relax. And I think that's easier for me in the martial traditions, I think, even than it has been in my career, because I think about the core principles of the styles we practice. And if you're a slightly different lineage, we probably still share the core principles. Your expression might be different, your approach might be different, but this is how we do it. I'm not saying anything that you're doing is wrong. This is how we perceive and implement those concepts. You have your theory and your examples. Our examples may differ, but the theory that drives them should be relatively similar.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
find that to be pretty easy. And then just remind people, I'm going to use a quote from one of my teachers and mentors. He says, all the things that we've received come through the filter of perception, preference, ability, and intent. And so there's a
Mm.
whole lot of potential filtering and crafting of understanding there. And it means that we're all going to take this stuff very differently. And so, let's enjoy, you're going to see whatever you want to see. You can put on the glasses of differences. You're going to see differences and everything. Put on the glasses of similarity and you're going to see the similarities. And I think, um, I typically don't have that much trouble working with other people because I also have grown in my, hope to say maturity. I hope this gray hair means something, and the aches and the joints. because I can look at everything now and go, well, you know what? I didn't understand this in the past, but now I do. I didn't realize the context of why they were training, but now I do. So any
Mhm.
little sliver of anything I see on the internet, it's less than the tip of the iceberg. It's less than something I should be forming an opinion on. So, let's talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, show it, prove its effectiveness or not, and move on from there. And then we just find that the lineage stuff and if I don't come out projecting the attitude of I'm right and you're wrong, then usually others don't respond in
Yeah.
kind. So,
Exactly. My
uh,
favorite icebreaker is to say, listen, man, there's two things I hate most in the martial arts. One is discrimination against other styles, and two is Taekwondo. I usually start with that,
that's
or
right. There you
insert
go.
whatever style name they
There you
have, and
go.
I love it. That's the best. That's the
see how
best.
mad they get.
That's good.
What about you, Randall? What do you do?
This might I Russ, this is going to surprise you because I've never told you this. Sifu Mayor has actually, called me Sifu a couple times, and I have a bunch of people that call me Sifu. And I came up with this quote the other day. I think I shared it with you, Russ, that I've met thousands of martial artists and maybe five good people out of them. And you guys are some of them, by the way. So
Oh, thanks,
you
man.
get the gold star for the day, gentlemen. So one reason that I chose the title of coach is because I've had 7 powerlifting coaches, and they all taught me something about deadlift. I've had 15 math teachers because I had to take fucking algebra 2 4 different times because I suck at math. At least algebra. I'm pretty good at geometry, which is strange. I'm pretty
Geometry
good.
makes sense. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Russ. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, I've had a lot of math teachers and they all taught me something. And I've had bad math teachers too. And that they teach you something too. Just like I've had bad martial arts instructors. So I use the term coach, and I've had tons of different lineages. It kind of eases them up because especially in the Wing Chun world, it's like, oh well, that Sifu stealing their students and stuff like that. It's like, no, they're going to train with a coach. He's not a Sifu, so you don't
Nice.
have to worry about being offended that one way. Two, I also say, and especially at seminars, I've done quite a bit of seminars as well, and I know you guys have too. Um, I say that there's nothing when I teach you, it's stuff that you already know, just from a different perspective. So everyone here loves grandma's pot roast. I might show you how to add a little curry to it. I might show you why jalapenos are good in it. I might show you, why Parmesan cheese as a filler might actually be better than breadcrumbs. So it's going to be the same pot roast. It's going to be the same meatloaf. Whatever food. There's definitely a food analogy with me. So I try to comfort them, and say that gives us an equal term, right? That doesn't mean that I'm superior to you. I'm going to teach you some stuff that you already know, just from a different angle and perspective. And that seems to really, really help out and work. And just being approachable and honest,
Yeah.
and listening to why they come to you too. I think not enough people do that. It's like, hey, I'm the same. I do Wing Chun also. I do it a little bit differently. Can I can I look at certain topics that you guys cover? That's really good because the more I can. What do you want? The more I can work with you. I really believe. So those are my things that seem to
I
help.
Years
like,
ago, I gave up on trying to be offensive, and now I just try to be equally offensive to everyone. So I find
right.
that
Yeah.
always pissing
Great.
people off.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
me ask you. Yep.
while you're running a workshop, though, I find it often that if we let people go off script, say, please play with this, add in your elements,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
add your
Yeah. Yeah.
finishers,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, once you've got it, I'm going to check that you've got it. You got it. Okay, so now go do your own thing. I love to go back and highlight or grab 4 or 5 things that they've done that I wouldn't have thought of
Mm.
and highlight that to the group. Say, hey guys, I saw this great thing these guys are doing over there. And that way people realize it's actually like we're all really helping each other along the way.
I'm stealing that. Thank you, Russ.
Cool,
Do
please do.
do you have any process of evaluating, auditing, and editing your traditional material? Like, do you ever look at something? Have you gotten rid of any traditional material, or do you try to just relegate its importance but maintain it?
Personally, I am a pack rat of when it comes to information. Now, my house, I try to clear it out, keep it thin, but for information, I have a real hard time. So if I'm going to quote unquote throw it away, and I like to use the analogy of there are some training wheels on my bicycle I no longer need. I take them off, but I don't throw them away. I put them on the closet because what I have found in the past through my own ego, when I decided I was going to change something and throw it away, I then just the next year realize I'm in this place in the journey and my student is in this place
Yeah.
in the journey, and
Yeah.
that training wheel was for them. It may
Mhm.
not be for me, but it's for them. And so I need to be careful of that. And I'll just add one other small bit, coach, and that is that sometimes I'm tempted to throw things away because I don't see the value in them at all.
Mhm.
Maybe I never did. Um, again, as I get older, the more I realize uh, everything has value somewhere at some point in time, just about. Maybe not everything, but most things do. And it's up to us to figure out the context in which that's valuable. I find this a ton where people will do drills and they will think they are developing skills. At best, they are developing attributes.
Yeah.
They are actually building anti-skills according to the goals of our training, but they are building some attributes. So we then have to take that training and relegate it to a place and a duration where it is of value, and then absolutely stop doing that anymore. Never do that again because you don't need it. So those are a couple approaches I've used. Set it on the shelf and bring it back when necessary, or find a better context for something than it was given to us in the first place.
And Randall, you put it on shelves or do you throw stuff away?
I keep it. I keep it, and I try to dust it off.
Mm.
Try to keep my shelves stocked like behind me, but
Yeah.
well dusted. The big thing for me though, Coach, is a term that I learned being the head supervisor of 90 buses on a 150 square mile radius. I did that for 4 years. They kept jacking with my schedule, so I went back to driving. But that is order of operations. And what I've found is there are some things that are more important that need to come first that could actually help the student. Just like I was
Yeah.
talking about the long pole and the knife training. Okay. Most of the people walking through the door, it's not 1940s Hong Kong. They need they're not working an 8 hour shift and then coming for 4 hours of training afterwards, right? They might be coming from a desk job. They could be standing in a grocery store doing the clerk line, standing all day. So they need a dynamic warm up. They need a great, movement practice, and then we can get into the two-person work. So for me, it's changing the order less than throwing it away, and then looking at what are the results that my students are getting by changing this order. Because you're hoping to move things around for the betterment of your student, not just because for novelty. So that's been my thing. I do keep all the goods, and with Wing Chun being a small system, and Xingyi somewhat being a relatively small system, everything seems to be very accessible and very usable. But that's also because I've had two great teachers, so that's helped as well.
Let me ask you both this. If money was unlimited, time was not a factor, what one field of study would you dedicate time to? It doesn't need to be a martial discipline. It could be
Huh.
skydiving, painting, whatever it is. Is there anything that you would most like to add to your current lifestyle?
Go ahead, Randall.
Okay, sure, not a problem. I back in another life, I used to be a pretty good singer. As a matter of fact, my first year and a half in college, which is one reason I took so long to graduate, is I was a vocal major. I used to sing opera,
Very nice.
and I used to be a tenor one, and now it's a hard baritone working on some muddy waters certain days. So I would dust off my singing, but honestly, I feel blessed. I may have a blue collar 9 to 5 job, but it's allowed me to do pretty much absolutely everything I've wanted. I've got some cool weightlifting things. I've got a great podcast with one of my best friends in my life. I've got cool training tools. I get to teach martial arts. I get to see my mom. So everything in my life is pretty much firing on all cylinders. But I do miss singing. I wish I had a little more downtime to do that. something artistic, maybe even painting, like you said. So that would be my look into.
Very cool. And
Yeah,
Russ?
that is cool. Yeah, I'm gonna start with the gratitude there. Like I feel like I'm very lucky to have had great teachers, have great teachers, have great people to continue to learn from and feed off of. But I would say, let me say it this way, yoga both without and with partners. So like yoga, I really am continuing to try to push my body
Mm,
to heal and rehabilitate and get stronger in different directions. And then I would love to be able to spend more time working on ground game, uh, judo, jujitsu. Um, but I have my own physical limitations. I'm not getting any younger. But if time and money were unlimited, if I could have the right coaches, if I could have the daily Thai massage, if I could have a yoga coach, yeah, my lifestyle would be even better. But I cannot complain right now, and I really should not, or else karma will probably bite me.
I love that you said push to heal because so
Mm,
many people think healing is just sitting, just waiting for it
Oh,
to happen. And like there's
oh,
such an active element, there's so much bravery,
yeah.
there's so much. So that brings me to my next question. If we think of all the fears, the threats that we train to possibly overcome, it
Yeah.
can be decrepitude from old age, it can be injury, it could be, inability, it could be very specific street threats or just aggression in the workplace. Which one is the most emotionally challenging for you right now at this point in your life?
so I'll say for me, martially, the big fear would be knife situations.
Yeah.
I mean, I have spent enough time, um, I mean, it's crazy what you can find online. I have watched a lot of murders online,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how
Yep.
fast
Yep.
and violent and surprising, and how quick people die, and how fast people go down when they're trying to focus on the knife. What other people do when they're focused on on stop shutting the attacker down. Just it is a scary proposition. It's very difficult to replicate those things in our own training. Just I would say knife work is hands down. And I have trained. I didn't mention this earlier, but I've trained Filipino martial arts as long as I've been training karate, so almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And I would say I still don't want to face people with knives.
Yeah.
There's not a bit. There's barely any confidence that I've gained from all the training. Some,
Yeah.
but not really.
Yeah. Amen to that. It's brutal.
Yeah.
And Randall, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll have two now because I could totally just piggyback off of what Sifu Russ said. But I guess another one the one that I was really thinking of is I do feel martially capable to protect myself, and I might go down swinging all these other things, but to actually protect someone else around me, that is something that I'm gonna try to go up and pick on John in November and December. But I've done door work like you have, Coach.
Yeah.
And in my early 20s, I thought it was cool. In my late 20s, I'm like, if I'm dealing with this much shit and
Mhm.
vomit, it better be my own children. So
Yeah.
I left. I was smart enough in my late 20s to walk away from that. But I felt very capable, but I don't know if I have the skills to transition into protecting somebody near me. So that's an area that I would like to work on and expand in my martial world.
For me, like early on, I had a lot of exposure to the anger spectrum. So like anger all the way up to like diluted rage. But lately, I don't know what it is. I went back, I did some security in my 50s and some bodyguarding and traveling a lot. I feel like, for lack of a better word, there's more desperation. Sometimes
Mm,
it's angry desperation, sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's a lot of mental illness, a lot of addictive, a lot of terrible drugs everywhere in the streets. But like recently, I was in Germany teaching a seminar, had two American friends there from Florida. We're having dinner with the host, and there's a little skirmish over at the bus stop, and we look casually And they have a huge like refugee crisis there, and there's a lot of people that were brought in that weren't given any employment, and it leads to desperation, and then there's
Yeah.
violence. And this guy that had to be in his 40s just was like trying to pick a fight with these two significantly larger, younger guys, and he's swinging a meat mallet. Like, and then we ended up being witnesses to this and had to get involved with the police, whatever. Guy gets away, throws it in the garbage. The next day, my American friends are like, wow, Germany's a little bit scary. I said, don't worry, it's an exceptional thing. They send me a photo of a guy being breath choked as cruelly as you can be choked by security in the train station. And then my other German buddy, who's going home to his particular city, is on the train car where another person attacks three women with a hammer.
Oh
And
wow.
this is all in the course of 12 hours, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? That
Sure.
level of like desperate, beyond rage, just inconsequential action. You don't even exist as a human to them because they're out of their mental state. This I find increasingly terrifying. And when I went
Oh
back to
yeah.
bouncing at like 50 and I saw like just how bad the fentanyl crisis is, and just, here, it's late arriving here, but just how different it was from 25 years ago. It's very scary, so that like more and more I try to have
Yeah.
gratitude and just connect with the aggressor and let's find a workaround, buddy, because
You know,
yeah, it's terrifying.
Co
Yeah.
Coach, I would say one of the things that really disturbs me in the direction that you're talking about is how often there are just so many people standing around when
Yes.
these things are happening.
Oh,
I don't know what it is. I don't know if I can credit the martial arts, but I've never been the guy who can stand there. I've always been
Yeah.
the first guy to run into the car crash and pull people out. I just cannot be that guy. And it stresses me to
yeah.
see everyone standing around, pulling out their cameras or just gawking. I don't know what it is about some of us who are willing to walk in, run in, and
Well,
get involved.
it's interesting because for decades I've worked with troubled youth, and the argument always is, why are we bringing in a martial artist to teach violent kids? And we were all raised on the Karate Kid and the notion that it brings discipline, and then some teachers are like, no, it doesn't bring discipline, it's just physical fitness. But there wasn't a lot of research that really supported this ideal. Just this past week, I read there's a brand new study. I forget who it's by, but I can link it. And it's the first study. It was kids being taught martial arts who were delinquent children. They were delinquent, violent offender teens, and they were found to have significant increases in 6 months of what they termed inhibition. So it inhibited violent impulse. It gave them greater sense of control, greater mental acuity, greater decision making. And they have like 20 metrics. So it's the first
Fantastic.
conclusive study that
Wow.
asked the right questions
Oh,
and got
please
the
do
right
share
answer.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
find it. It just
amazing.
came up randomly, and I was like, yes, 100%.
Fantastic.
I know you guys, I know, Russ, you're pressed for time. Let me just close with a few of these. Russ, how would you hope to see your approach, your arts
Mhm.
evolving in the next 10 years?
Yeah, yeah. My, I mean, uh, for my personal training or my teaching or both, my personal
Both,
training,
either,
both.
whatever you wish.
Yeah, my personal training again, I am very centered on trying to make sure I'm living a very healthy training
Hmm.
regime. Again, I've got my own physical concerns that I'm trying to push through. I want to stay strong and practicing as long as I can, and then teach as long as I can. For me, there's a ton of joy in the socialization of the training, in the feeling of the endorphins, the getting the blood pumping. I love exercise and working out. There are things, even though I don't really need kata to practice fighting techniques or to teach fighting techniques, I love them because they're something I can do when I'm by myself. And one thing people I don't think about much is you're going to spend 99% of your life not in a school. You need to be thinking about what that means to your training. So,
Yeah.
you're going to spend most of your time in solo practice. How do you do that well? Yeah, so for me, continuing to understand what I've been given to take care of my body. Uh, Power isn't as powerful or isn't as important to me now as flow and reaction. So those are things I work on more. And, for teaching, I just continue to work on trying to develop good curriculum, good practitioner training models, good instructor training models, try to replicate the good things while also building into our culture good process improvement and change management techniques so that we can treat our traditions as living traditions, document changes, and make sure that we are improving along the way.
Randall?
You know, probably just keep what I'm doing as far as maybe adjust my diet a little bit. Maybe a few less cheeseburgers. But that being said, as far as my weightlifting and the training goes, I think that's going really well. As well as the supplementary work with like my wooden weapons that I have. I have a lot of wooden tools as well as iron and steel and all these other things. I think you guys are very heavily weapon trained, and I've only got a few, but I will tell you that I've really shifted in the last 2 years into doing the few weapons that I know. I'm doing a lot more of the long pole work with Wing Chun. I'm doing a lot more with the knife work. I only have a couple weapons out of Xingyi, but I really like the Chinese saber. I do a ton of work with that. Owen actually taught me a stationary practice method to go through the elements, and it's just as good as doing like a standing method, but it's moving. So I'm finding that to be great for my own personal practice. Um, but as far as my teaching style goes, it's primarily in the Wing Chun. I've been teaching for about 20 years now, which is wild to say out loud, and probably too soon. I was Sifu Russ. I went through the arc of being the tragic, I'm fumbling rookie teacher to I might kind of have something well put
For sure.
together, and I'm on my seventh iteration of curriculum on how to teach a rookie student. Something that Sifu Mayer has said to me, and it's stuck in my soul. And this is what it is: the path to mastery, that arc and that curve can never be shortened. It can never be cut. But the introduction of a rookie student to your art, that can be tightened, that can be worked on, that can be whittled, that can be carved. And so I'm on my seventh iteration on how to introduce Wing Chun now. I'm hoping that I find more breakthroughs along the way, and I never take it personal. Like I'm the kind of person that's like, this isn't working. I might have to scrap my whole model and start from ground zero. I never take because it's me, but I never
Mhm.
take it personal on myself to be like, okay, I'm not going to shove my student into the form that is my curriculum. I'm going to work with them, especially if they work with me. If they're putting in the work and they're just not getting things, I'm not going to shove them into the shape of that curriculum. I'm going to work with
Yeah.
them, and I'm going to look at the tools that I have and adjust for my student.
Slightly deeply connected, but slightly more morbid. What would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered as an instructor?
You got to start this one, Russ, because you got a lot more. You got a
Sure,
lot
sure.
more teaching years on me, not more years,
Yeah.
and you got a lot more students than I do.
Yeah, so Randall, I think you said it in a certain way that I'll riff on. You said the path to mastery can't be shortened. I like how you said that, and I think the intention is important. And that is mastery is that hard to define last level of your training, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, what I think is super important to me for my legacy is I want students who can avoid the pitfalls I fell into, whose training becomes much more efficient because they clearly understand everything they're doing, not only in my system, in our systems, and with the traditions that we're carrying on. I shouldn't say my system, that sounds weird. Um, uh, but in the traditions that we carry on, I want them to understand really everything about why we're doing what we're doing, what
Yeah.
the goals are. Like we backwards plan this. You know what the goals are. You know how we test it. You know why we're doing these exercises. I want that roadmap to be super clear to my students and for them to be able to reproduce that with high fidelity in future generations. Um, but I think there's a ton of inefficiency in the way I came up. I want them to leapfrog over that stuff. lastly, I want them to not only understand what we do, but understand what everybody else is doing. Because I see a lot of students today who get excited. Oh, that Silat guy did this really cool thing and he did like that. And it's like, yeah, but that's what we're doing. We're doing that. There's just an aesthetic quality
Yeah.
difference. So I want them to understand that, because what they could do is then they could peel off, go study a whole other art for a reason that really wasn't a great reason. And it might be fun, it might be the right answer, but it also might be a really long sidetrack to get to the same place. So I want my students to teach well, teach efficiently, know what they're doing, and know what martial arts, what the whole pie really looks like. That way they can see their own gaps and understand them well, not try to jam everything in one art, but maybe go cross train in the other art that fills the gaps. I just want this stuff to be less esoteric, less religious,
Yes.
less inefficient.
Mhm.
Like those are the things that I really hope come out of our efforts.
Now, Russ, you said by sheer irony, you said coincidence, you said backward planning, which was
Yes.
literally the page of your book that I was reading this morning in
Oh,
principle-driven
awesome.
skill development and
Woo.
traditional martial arts. So I'm going to plug
Cool.
it. This is
Thanks.
available, I think, worldwide on Amazon.
Yes, in also in several other languages, Italian, German, Spanish. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
And
Dutch.
if you are a traditional martial artist, I think this is a good escape route into the organic. But I would also say to the eclectic RBSD MMA guy who might poo-poo elements of traditional martial arts, this is a good gateway drug to get into an understanding of the value there. Because a lot, my sensei used to say that there's no blood in the bones. A lot of these traditional, or these modern guys don't understand the value of tradition, and then you see them ironically after enough time try to retrofit, and they're adding modern mobility practice as opposed to traditional health, and they're adding breath work as opposed to meditation,
Mhm.
but they're just retro engineering what's already there. And so I think it's very dangerous to have discriminatory thought patterns against tradition, which is very common in a lot of the martial art gyms these days. And if I can rant on that, everyone's poo-pooing the traditional arts, but in my day, if you walked into a dojo and there was a black belt teaching, you knew this guy was there training for 20 years. We got BJJ clubs in the city where the guy that's running the school has 2 years of training. And it's not to say he's not
Mm.
good, but how much life experience does that guy have? How much real world experience? So I think there's a tremendous amount of value in traditional arts. And I think this book is just a really beautiful synopsis of how you can keep all of the tradition, but make it relative to the modern audience. So I want to
Wow.
plug
Thank
that.
you so much.
Let me close by asking each of you, Russ, what is next on the horizon? I know you're working on stuff, but I won't say it unless you want
Yeah,
to say it. What's coming up?
sure.
Do you have any big events, any things happening coming out?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've got a series of workshops going on throughout the end of the year. I'm doing something in Arkansas, Maryland, London, Toronto through the end of the year. So those are great. If anybody wants, just reach out to me and I'll get you the details on those. I have a instructor's manual coming out here soon. It's aimed at my students. Randel is being very kind and helping me edit that. So he's got some sneak peeks on that and some feedback, which has been wonderful. And the rest of it is really just continuing to solidify curriculum and make sure that we're able to move forward with high fidelity. That's the goal.
Amazing. And Monsieur Randall?
So I will be helping with the Denver Chinese National Tournament, also known as the 5280 Shaolin Tournament in Denver, September 26th, 27th, and 28th. I'll be helping out judging for that and presenting. And then the following weekend, which is the first weekend in October, um, there's a new seminar series that hopefully is taking place called Chun Con. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. I did not name it though. But that being said, one coach and three other Wing Chun Sifus uh, from rare lineages are coming into town. It's going to be 16 hours. It's going to be one day, 8 hours, the next day, 8 hours for 150 US dollars. I
Wow.
think
Awesome.
that is an
Awesome.
absolute steal. It's going to be great. It's anybody and something we've really tried to get the word out there on is it doesn't matter if you've never done Wing Chun, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or if you've done it for 50 years, you know, because it's different lineages and because we're going to show different material, we're going to take the time to show stuff that people haven't, you know, really seen before or heard of, and really looking forward to doing that. And then the other thing too is uh, just keeping dropping bi-weekly podcasts on the Kung Fu Conversation podcast with my amazing co-host Owen Schilling. Just keep working on that. And then I've got my small groups that I train with in Denver. I've got private students here in Longmont, which is close to Boulder. So things are great. Things are going good.
Gentlemen, I'm going to link all of your coordinates as per usual in the description. I just want to thank you sincerely. It is a lot of work doing a podcast, as you know, Randel. Randel's my weekly pep talk saying, "Don't quit, keep going."
Yes,
It's a ton of work.
we need you, coach.
Hardest,
We need you.
yeah, the hardest thing is coordinating people, as we've talked about how many people get cold feet and all of that stuff. And then the second hardest thing sometimes is pulling information out of people. You guys are self-running. It is an absolute pleasure having you on. Proof is I didn't even need to be here when my phone crapped out. You guys just kept going. And I hope to have you both on again, because I had about 100 questions and had to limit myself to 20. So thank you both for being two of my most inspiring internet friends. I appreciate the camaraderie and the support and the examples that you set in the world out there. So thank you for doing the good that you do.
Back
We
at you,
appreciate.
coach.
All
Yes,
right,
thank you so
guys.
much.
I want to take a second to thank you all for listening and thank you all for the requests. I had really great feedback when I reposted Randel's Kung Fu Conversations with me and Sifu Russ, and this in large part led to this, and there will be more conversations in the future. Until next week, guys, stay safe and stay strong.